Hey guys, April 30th is National Oatmeal Raisin Cookie Day. Two people that I know for sure love an oatmeal raisin cookie would be my dad and my uncle Sam. In today's video, we're going to do a family story time with a historical fun fact. So without further delay, let's get started. So for our ingredients, we're going to use the metric system this time, simply because it's just easier and it's more accurate. So get your pen and paper or your photographic memory, because here are the ingredients for oatmeal raisin cookies. We're going to need 228 grams of soft unsalted butter, 228 grams of granulated sugar, 228 grams of brown sugar, whole eggs, about 2 large ones. We're going to need 4 grams of white vanilla extract, 256 grams of all-purpose flour, 185 grams of rolled oats, 4 grams of baking powder, 4 grams of granulated salt, 225 grams of raisins, and my dad wanted to be extra special, so 115 grams of chopped walnut. So the instructions for everything we're going to do is going to be on the screen so that I can tell you this funny-ish family story that I really do enjoy telling. But first and foremost, my first experience with the oatmeal raisin cookie was an experience of deception. As a child, I remember I ran to the kitchen and I'm like, ooh, cookies, have a cookie, take a bite. It was not chocolate chip. And I was immediately disappointed, and I was immediately felt deceived, and I was just very confused as to why this cookie, which I thought was chocolate chip, turned out to be oatmeal raisin. And I know that a lot of other children have experienced this as well. So it's kind of funny that my uncle and my dad like oatmeal raisin cookies, which is a cookie of deception, because their origin story is kind of one of deception as well. So anyone who knows me knows how much I enjoy telling this story, because it is just such a fun and quirky story in my opinion. And it's a story that you just don't see coming, if I'm being quite honest. So first and foremost, my dad and my uncle were born on April 1st, which is April Fool's Day. And if you hadn't noticed from the picture I showed before, they are twins, identical twins to be exact. So what happened was, my grandmother went into labor, went to the hospital, and then my dad came out first. And then it was a big surprise because my grandmother did not know that she was having twins. So when my dad came out, then it was like oh my God, April Fools, you're having twins, which I can only imagine was a huge shock to my grandmother, because she definitely was only planning on bringing home one child, and instead she brought home 2. So now, funny historical fun fact, I was Googling because I honestly was confused. I'm like, how could they not know that my grandmother was pregnant with twins? Like, it just seems so unusual. Like, wouldn't they have noticed that on a sonogram or something or other, or some sort of medical exam? So I Googled and I was like, when was the ultrasound sonogram, when did that come about? And funny enough, it was invented the year my parents were born. So they wouldn't have been able to see that my dad and my uncle were in there together chilling, because they wouldn't have been able to even notice it. And oddly enough, the first sonogram and ultrasound was only using sound technology to map out the womb area, and it was first used to measure the size of a child's head on the inside, to make sure that the mother was able to properly give birth. So even the visual of a sonogram ultrasound didn't even come about until 2 years later. So I'm pretty sure in 1956 it wasn't accessible to everybody. So it does, kind of lean into the idea that my grandmother would not have known that she was pregnant with twins until the very last moment, which is exactly what happened on April Fool's Day. But not for nothing, when I really think about it, there's so many different stories of, I guess, deception where one is mistaken for the other, from their siblings to co-workers, people on the street. And the amount of stories I heard where, they thought that my dad was my uncle, and they thought that my uncle was my dad, to the point of sometimes getting very close to becoming violent. And it's just pretty funny. But now that I think about it, a lot of these situations, it was usually my uncle getting yelled at by somebody who knew my dad, which makes me wonder, like, what was my dad doing that was so out there that people were just popping off on my poor uncle for my dad's shenanigans? But I mean, that's neither here nor there. And to this day, it's just really funny stories to hear, and I could imagine it's probably even funnier to experience as well. One quick story I can tell you, my mom told me recently that when they were newly engaged, her hairdresser was on the bus and she saw my uncle with his wife, and she just assumed that my dad was cheating on my mom, and she stormed in ready to just start taking names. And then they had to explain to her that not only was he not my dad, but he was actually my dad's brother, and IDs had to be shown and those kind of wild shenanigans as well. All right, guys, that is a wrap on my oatmeal raisin cookie video with walnuts, because my dad is special. Please let me know in the comments how yours turned out and how you like this recipe. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, ring that little bell so that way you are notified when the next video drops. I'm Chef Cleva, and remember, everyone's a little curious. Bye, guys.